We don't suddenly wake up successful. Success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines practiced every day. And failure is simply a few errors in judgment repeated every day. It's the accumulated weight of our disciplines and our judgments that leads us to either fortune or failure. I once had a friend ask me, Jim, how can I have a better life? And I said, let me ask you a better question. How can you have a better Monday? Because here's what I've discovered. You change your life by changing your days, and you can change your day in just 1 hour. Think about that. 1 hour can change your whole day. 1 day can change your whole week. 1 week can change your whole month. And before you know it, you've changed your life. So let's talk about these 5 habits, these 5 disciplines that can create a seismic shift in your life in just 7 days. Are you ready? The first habit that changed everything for me was waking up 3 hours before my day officially began. 3 hours. Now I know what you're thinking. Jim, you must be crazy. I need my sleep. And you're right, sleep is important. But what's more important is your control over your life. And your life begins the moment you open your eyes. Those early morning hours became sacred to me. Sacred. They gave me something precious that most people never experienced: sovereign territory. Time that was completely my own. Time where the world wasn't yet making demands. Time where I could invest in myself before I began paying dividends to everyone else. In those quiet hours, I wasn't responding to the day, I was creating it. I was setting the tone, establishing the rhythm, designing the blueprint for the hours ahead. And let me tell you, my friends, there is enormous power in that kind of intentionality. Now, did I love the sound of that alarm at first? Absolutely not. Those initial mornings were a test of will. My body fought me. My mind fought me. Every fiber of my being wanted to reach over, hit snooze, and surrender to the warm comfort of those blankets. But I had made a decision, and decisions have power only when they're backed by action. So I got up, and then I got up again the next day, and again the day after that. By the end of the week, something remarkable had happened. I had found my rhythm. What started as a discipline had begun to transform into a desire. I was no longer dragging myself out of bed. I was drawn to those morning hours because I had experienced their value. And what did I do with this newly claimed territory? That's where the second habit came into play. I devoted the first hour of every day to personal development. 1 full hour, not 10 minutes skimming a book, not 20 minutes half listening to a tape while doing something else. 1 focused, intentional, uninterrupted hour. I read the greatest books. I studied the wisest philosophers. I absorbed the insights of those who had walked the path before me. I filled my mind with ideas that expanded my thinking, challenged my assumptions, and elevated my standards. Why is this so powerful? Because your mind is like a garden, my friends. What you plant there will grow. It's that simple. If you don't plant anything intentionally, weeds will take over. Those weeds are the random influences of the world around you, the negative news cycle, other people's agendas, society's low expectations. But when you deliberately plant seeds of wisdom, knowledge, and positive ideas, you create a garden of possibility. That first hour set the intellectual and emotional tone for my entire day. And here's what I discovered: the world has plenty of time to tell you what it thinks. It has all day. But if you don't first decide what you think, you'll find yourself carried along by everyone else's currents. That morning hour of study became my anchor, my compass, my foundation. By the end of that week, I had consumed ideas that had stood the test of time. I had filled my mental reservoir with insights that I could draw from throughout the day. I found myself thinking differently, speaking differently, making decisions differently. All because I had changed what I put into my mind first thing every day. The third habit, and this one might surprise you, was writing down everything I spent. Everything. Not just the big purchases, but every single dime, that cup of coffee, that newspaper, that small donation, everything. Now, why would something so seemingly mundane have such a profound effect? Because what you track, you improve. It's an unwritten law of human behavior. The mere act of awareness creates change. Before I began this habit, money seemed to slip through my fingers like water. I'd reach the end of the week, the end of the month, and wonder, where did it all go? Sound familiar? I wasn't necessarily making poor choices. I was making unconscious choices. And unconscious choices rarely lead to conscious success. So I carried a small notebook everywhere I went. Every time I spent money, anything at all, I wrote it down immediately. Not later, not when I got home, right then and there. The first day was eye-opening. The second day was uncomfortable. By the third day, something interesting began to happen. I started to hesitate before making purchases. That small moment of pausing to record the expense created just enough space for a question to arise. Is this really worth it? Sometimes the answer was yes, often it was no. But the important thing wasn't the answer, it was the question. I had shifted from unconscious spending to conscious choice. By the end of the week, I had a complete picture of where my money was actually going, not where I thought it was going. The gap between perception and reality was startling. And in that gap lived all the opportunity for change. You see, financial freedom doesn't come from making more money. It comes from understanding the money you already have. It comes from becoming a good steward of your resources, no matter how abundant or how limited they may be at the moment. This simple habit, just writing things down, redirected thousands of dollars a year. Thousands. Not because I was suddenly making more, but because I was suddenly managing better what I already had. And that, my friends, is the definition of good stewardship. The fourth habit that transformed my life was making 5 new connections every single day. 5 authentic human connections, not just handshakes and business card exchanges, but real moments of genuine engagement. In our world of superficial relationships and digital connections, the currency of real human interaction is skyrocketed in value. We are surrounded by people yet starving for connection. We have hundreds of online friends but few shoulders to cry on. Many of us have robust networks but anemic relationships. So I committed to 5 meaningful touch points each day. Sometimes this meant calling an old friend I hadn't spoken to in months. Sometimes it meant having a real conversation with the barista who made my coffee every morning. Sometimes it meant sending a thoughtful note to someone who had influenced my life. The first day felt awkward. I'm naturally reserved, and pushing myself beyond pleasantries didn't come easily. The second day was a bit smoother. By the third day, I began to notice something. People were responding. Really responding, not just with words, but with energy, with reciprocity, with genuine appreciation for the moment of authentic connection. What I discovered is that most people are waiting to be reached. They're waiting for someone else to go first, to bridge the gap, to extend the hand of genuine interest. When you become that person, when you take the initiative to create real connection, people respond with surprising warmth. By the end of the week, I had created or deepened 35 human connections. 35. Think about the compound effect of that over a month, a year, a lifetime. And here's what's fascinating: opportunities began to appear from unexpected places. That brief but genuine conversation with a fellow passenger on a flight led to a business introduction. That thoughtful follow-up with someone I met at a conference opened a new door. That reconnection with an old friend resolved a long-standing question I'd been wrestling with. The quality of your life is directly related to the quality of your relationships. It's not what you know, it's not even who you know, it's how well you know them and how much they know you care. This habit of intentional connection created a web of relationships that began to yield fruit almost immediately in ways I never could have engineered or predicted. The fifth habit, and in many ways the most transformative, was ending each day with focused gratitude. Not just general thankfulness, but specific, detailed appreciation for 5 things that had occurred that very day. Each night before bed, I would sit down with pen and paper and ask myself, what 5 gifts did today bring? And I would write them down, savoring each one, feeling the fullness of appreciation for each blessing, large or small. Some days this came easily. Other days I had to search a bit harder. But here's what I discovered: the treasures are always there if you're willing to look for them. Always. Even on our worst days, we are surrounded by blessings that go unnoticed simply because we're not training our eyes to see them. This practice began to radically shift my perception. I found myself becoming more attuned to positive moments throughout the day, knowing I would be recording them later. I began to experience difficult situations differently, often finding myself thinking there might be something here to be grateful for, even if I can't see it yet. By the end of the week, I had documented 35 specific blessings, moments of joy, growth opportunities, small kindnesses, unexpected solutions, beauty observed. And reviewing this list became a powerful reminder that life, despite its challenges, is fundamentally good. This habit of gratitude didn't just change my evening routine, it changed my entire orientation to life. It shifted me from a mindset of scarcity, always focusing on what I lacked, to a mindset of abundance, regularly celebrating what I already possessed. And here's what's fascinating about gratitude: it creates a kind of magnetic field that seems to attract more blessings into your life. The more thankful you become, the more you notice things to be thankful for. It's a beautiful upward spiral that enriches everything it touches. Now let's step back and look at the compound effect of these 5 habits over that single week. I was waking up earlier and investing in my mind, tracking my finances, connecting authentically with others, and cultivating gratitude. Each habit alone would have been valuable, but together they created a symphony of positive change that was far greater than the sum of its parts. The early morning rising gave me the time and space needed for personal development. The financial awareness freed up resources that I could invest more wisely. The human connections opened doors of opportunity and support. And the gratitude practice ensured that I recognized and appreciated all of it, creating an emotional environment where growth could flourish. And here's what I want you to understand, my friends, these habits didn't require special talent. They didn't require unusual circumstances. They didn't require significant financial investment. What they required was the one thing all of us possess equally: choice. The power to decide, the power to begin, the power to persist when the initial excitement fades. Now, was it easy? No, meaningful change rarely is. There were mornings when my body screamed for more sleep. There were moments when I wanted to skip recording an expense because it reflected a choice I wasn't proud of. There were days when making authentic connections felt beyond my emotional energy. But here's what I discovered: discipline weighs ounces, but regret weighs tons. The momentary discomfort of pushing through resistance is nothing compared to the lasting pain of knowing you could have changed your life, but chose not to. And here's another thing I learned: motivation is what gets you started, but habit is what keeps you going. Those first few days were fueled by excitement, by novelty, by the promise of change. But as the week progressed, something remarkable happened. The actions began to take root. They began to feel less like impositions and more like expressions of who I was becoming. That's the power of habit formation. What begins as a conscious, sometimes uncomfortable choice gradually becomes an unconscious, automatic behavior. The things we do repeatedly become the things we do easily. And the things we do easily define who we become ultimately. So let me ask you this: who are you becoming? Who will you be 1 week from today? 1 month? 1 year? The answer lies largely in the habits you're cultivating right now. You see, most people overestimate what they can accomplish in a day, and they vastly underestimate what they can accomplish in a week, a month, a year of consistent action. Small disciplines repeated with consistency every day lead to great achievements gained slowly over time. Think about it this way: if you improve just 1% each day, at the end of a year you'd be 37 times better than when you started. That's the miracle of compound interest applied to personal development. Small changes consistently applied create massive results over time. The tragedy is that most people never start. They're waiting for the perfect time, the perfect circumstances, the perfect feelings. But here's what I've learned: there is no perfect time. There are only moments in what you do with them. Life is constantly inviting us to become more, to reach higher, to expand our capabilities. But so many of us decline the invitation. We settle for less than we're capable of. We accept the status quo. We resign ourselves to that's just how it is. But not you. Not anymore. Because you've heard this message, and messages have power. They plant seeds. And once a seed is planted, it seeks expression. It wants to grow. The only question is whether you'll nurture it or neglect it. I believe you'll nurture it. I believe you'll take these 5 habits or some version of them that resonates with your specific situation, and you'll put them into practice. Not perfectly, but persistently. Not flawlessly, but faithfully. And when you do, I want you to remember something important. The first week is both the hardest and the most revealing. It's the hardest because you're pushing against the inertia of old patterns. It's the most revealing because you'll get your first taste of what's possible, of who you're capable of becoming. During that first week, pay attention to the subtle shifts. Notice how your energy changes. Notice how your confidence grows. Notice how problems that once seemed overwhelming begin to appear manageable. These early wins, these first fruits of your new disciplines, will fuel your continued commitment. And commitment is everything. The difference between who you are and who you want to be is what you do. It's not what you intend. It's not what you believe. It's not even what you feel. It's what you do consistently. So let me challenge you. Begin these 5 habits tomorrow. Not next Monday. Not when you feel more ready. Not after the holidays or after things settle down at work. Tomorrow. Because if not now, when? If not these habits, which ones? If not you taking control of your life, then who? Rise early and claim sovereign territory for yourself before the world makes its demands. Invest in your mind so that your thinking expands beyond its current limitations. Track your resources so that you become a good steward of what you've been given. Connect authentically with others so that you build a network of real relationships. And cultivate gratitude so that you train your eyes to see the abundance that already surrounds you. Do these things for 1 week, just 1 week. And at the end of that week, wait. Take stock. Notice the changes, both subtle and significant. I promise you, if you apply these disciplines with sincerity and consistency, you will see transformation. You will experience the beginning of what could be the most important change process of your life. And then once you've experienced it, you'll face a choice to continue or to return to your old ways. And that choice will reveal something profound about you. It will reveal what you truly value, what you truly believe, and what kind of future you're truly committed to creating. You know, I've often said that there are two types of pain in life, the pain of discipline and the pain of regret. The pain of discipline weighs ounces, while the pain of regret weighs tons. And the fascinating thing is you get to choose which pain you'll carry. The disciplines I've shared with you today might feel heavy at first. They might feel like a burden, an imposition, another set of shoulds in a life already full of obligations. But I promise you this, they're not adding weight, they're giving you wings. They're not constricting your life, they're expanding your possibilities. Because here's what happens when you embrace these disciplines, you begin to experience the deep satisfaction of knowing you're living intentionally rather than accidentally. You begin to feel the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you're becoming the person you're capable of being. You begin to sense the growing momentum of positive change that, once set in motion, creates its own energy. I remember the end of my first week of practicing these habits. I sat down on Friday evening and reflected on the previous 7 days. I looked at what I'd accomplished, how I'd changed, what I'd learned. And I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time, genuine pride. Not arrogance, not boastfulness, but the quiet dignity of knowing I was taking responsibility for the quality and direction of my life. That feeling, that deep satisfaction of living deliberately became its own reward. It created a positive feedback loop that made continuing these habits not just desirable, but almost inevitable. The rewards of discipline had outweighed the comfort of familiar patterns. And that's the secret, my friends, when the rewards of new behaviors outweigh the comfort of old ones, change becomes sustainable. It's no longer about willpower. It's about wanting the new more than you want the old. It's about falling in love with the person you're becoming more than you're attached to the person you've been. Let me share with you what happened in the weeks and months that followed. That first transformative week wasn't a fluke. It wasn't temporary. It was the foundation for what became a completely different trajectory in my life. The early morning rising gave me over 1,000 extra hours, that year hours invested in growth, creativity, planning, and personal renewal. Imagine what you could do with an extra 1,000 hours. That's like getting an additional 41 days each year. The daily personal development created a reservoir of wisdom, inspiration, and strategic thinking that changed how I approached every aspect of my life, my work, my relationships, my health, my contributions to others. I was no longer reacting to life, I was responding to it with greater wisdom and intention. The financial tracking redirected thousands of dollars from unconscious spending to conscious investing in experiences that truly mattered, in opportunities for growth, in assets that appreciated rather than depreciated. I wasn't making more money, I was making better use of the money I already had. The intentional connecting created a web of relationships that became both a support system and a catalyst for opportunity. Problems that once seemed insurmountable became manageable because I had people I could turn to, collaborate with, learn from. And doors began to open not because I was pounding on them, but because others were opening them for me. The gratitude practice transformed my fundamental outlook, shifting me from a focus on what was missing to an appreciation for what was present. This didn't make me complacent, it made me content. And paradoxically, contentment created the emotional space needed for healthy ambition to flourish. I began to pursue more not from a sense of lack, but from a desire to express more of what I was capable of becoming. Together, these 5 habits didn't just change what I did, they changed who I was. And who we are, our character, our mindset, our basic orientation to life determines what we ultimately achieve and experience far more than our circumstances or opportunities. You know, there's a question I often ask my audiences. If someone were to follow you around for a week, your everyday normal week, would they want your life? It's a confronting question, isn't it? Because most of us want to believe our lives are admirable, worthy of emulation. But the true test isn't what we think about our lives, it's what our actual daily habits say about what we truly value. These 5 habits I've shared with you represent what I believe are the fundamental investments we can make in ourselves, investments of time, attention, awareness, connection, and appreciation. They cover the essential territories of personal leadership, how we manage ourselves, our resources, our relationships, and our perspective. And here's what makes them so powerful. They're accessible to everyone. You don't need special advantages to wake up early. You don't need privilege to read good books. You don't need connections to track your spending. You don't need wealth to connect authentically with others. You don't need status to practice gratitude. These habits are democratic in the purest sense. They're available to anyone willing to practice them. So what's stopping you? What's the barrier between you and the life these habits could help you create? It's not knowledge. I've just shared the blueprint. It's not capability. You have everything you need to begin. The only real barrier is decision, deciding that who you can become is more important than the comfort of remaining who you currently are. And that decision can be made in an instant, right now, this very moment. You can decide that tomorrow morning you'll rise 3 hours before your day officially begins. You can decide that you'll invest the first hour in feeding your mind. You can decide that you'll track every penny you spend. You can decide that you'll make 5 authentic connections. You can decide that you'll end your day by documenting 5 specific blessings. 1 decision, 5 habits, 7 days. That's the formula for beginning a transformation that could reshape the entire landscape of your life. Now, will it be easy? No. Will there be resistance? Absolutely. Your old patterns, your old self-image, your old comforts, they won't surrender without a fight. Change always triggers resistance. That's not a flaw in the system. It's how the system is designed to work. Resistance is simply the way life tests our commitment. But here's what I've learned about resistance. It yields to persistence. Always. It may not yield immediately, but it always yields eventually to the person who refuses to give up, who keeps showing up, who maintains clarity about what they want and why they want it. And the beautiful thing about these 5 habits is that they create their own momentum. Each one reinforces the others. The early rising makes personal development possible. The personal development creates insights that improve financial management. Better financial management frees up resources that can strengthen relationships. Stronger relationships provide more reasons for gratitude. And gratitude creates the positive emotional environment needed to sustain all the other disciplines. It's a virtuous cycle, a self-reinforcing system of positive change. All it needs to begin is your decision, your commitment, your willingness to step beyond what's comfortable into what's possible. I believe in you. I believe you have what it takes to make these changes. I believe these 5 habits can transform your life, just as they transformed mine. But ultimately, my belief doesn't matter. What matters is your belief in the possibility of change, your belief in your capacity to grow, your belief that 1 week of disciplined action can set in motion forces that will reshape your future. So, my friends, I leave you with this invitation. Begin tomorrow. Take these 5 habits and put them into practice. Not perfectly, but persistently. Not flawlessly, but faithfully. Give yourself the gift of 1 transformed week. And at the end of that week, evaluate, take stock, notice what's different, what's better, what's possible. And then decide if you want to continue becoming the person these habits are helping you become. I think I know what your answer will be, because once you've experienced the power of intentional living, there's no going back. Once you've tasted the satisfaction of conscious growth, nothing else will satisfy. Once you've felt the quiet confidence that comes from taking control of your life, you'll never again be content with drifting. 1 decision, 5 habits, 7 days, the beginning of a new life. The opportunity is before you. What will you do with it? Remember, it's not what we know that changes our lives, it's what we do consistently with what we know. Knowledge without action is like having a treasure map but never taking the journey. Don't let this be just another interesting idea that passes through your awareness without changing your actions. Let it be the catalyst for a new chapter in your story. I believe in you. I believe in these habits. I believe in the transformation they can create. Now it's your turn to believe, and more importantly, to begin. The life you've imagined is waiting on the other side of your willingness to change. Step forward. Start tomorrow. Give yourself the gift of 1 transformed week. I promise you won't regret it. So here's to your success. Here's to your growth. Here's to the person you're becoming. May these 5 habits serve you as powerfully as they've served me and thousands of others who put them into practice. May they be the beginning of the most important change process of your life. And may you look back on this moment 1 year from now and recognize it as the turning point when everything began to change for the better. Thank you for your attention, for your willingness to consider these ideas, and for the commitment I hope you'll make to yourself. The world needs what you have to offer, and these habits will help ensure that your unique contributions find their fullest expression. God bless you on your journey.